Hi everyone, Rose here. What if the religion that shaped your entire life no longer looks like the religion that shaped it? See, I was born as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm a fourth generation, and my husband, well, he's a fifth. For more than 50 years, this wasn't just my religion. It shaped the way I lived. It shaped the way I raised my children. It shaped my family. It shaped my future. And like so many witnesses, I didn't realize how much had changed while I was living it. One adjustment here, another policy there, a different meeting, a new understanding, a new name. None of those changes felt enormous by themselves. I accepted them. I adjusted. And then I moved on, just like all witnesses do. But one day I stepped back. And for the first time, I looked at all of those changes together. And that's when it finally hit me. The organization I was born into and belonged to for more than 50 years no longer looked like the religion that had shaped my life. So I started thinking back to the religion I grew up in, back to what meetings were like, what field service was like, what assemblies and conventions were like. And then I began comparing those memories with what I see today. And you know what? The differences really surprised me. When I think back to the religion I grew up in, one of the first things that comes to mind is the book study. Now, if you weren't around back then, you might not even know what that was. Once a week, we would meet together in someone's living room instead of the Kingdom Hall. We'd squeeze onto couches, folding chairs, and even the floor if there wasn't enough seats. It felt different. It felt smaller, more personal. And if you grew up as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, you probably remember Goodie Night. Once a month, I would host Goodie Night. Everyone stayed afterward for coffee, desserts, and conversation. As a kid, and even as an adult, that was one of my favorite nights of the month. Looking back, it wasn't really about the food, it was about the friendships. But then one day, the book study was just gone, and that surprised me. Meeting themselves felt different too. We always had our Bibles with us, at the Kingdom Hall, in field service, at assemblies and the conventions. We learned how to find scriptures fast, underline verses, and follow along. But today, it's much more common to see tablets and phones. Then, over time, videos gradually became part of the meetings. Professionally produced demonstrations became more common. And little by little, the meetings really started to feel different. Then there was the Theocratic Ministry School. If you grew up with it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We were assigned the talks, but we were only given a theme, a couple of scriptures, and a setting. And we had to do the entire talk ourselves. It was designed to teach us how to speak publicly and present the ministry. And after each assignment, we actually received a grade. Now that I think about it, that really was a little nerve-wracking. But it also taught many of us how to speak in front of people at a young age. And that's something I'll always be grateful for. Meetings changed in other ways too. Public talks became shorter. The material became simpler. The names changed. The way demonstrations were presented changed. Now, individually, none of those things seemed like a big deal. But if you put them all together, they painted a very different picture than the one I remembered. And that's when I realized this wasn't the same religion I grew up in. Another thing that immediately comes to mind is field service. For most people, Saturday mornings probably meant sleeping in. But for us, Saturday mornings started with service. And honestly, some of my favorite memories came from early morning service. Before our regular Saturday morning service even started, we would meet, me and my friends, would meet downtown around 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. We'd hand out magazines to people heading to work. We'd place them at bus stops or visit laundromats before the city really woke up. The magazines weren't free. We would actually ask for a small donation, so being able to just give them to the people was a big deal, and we were able to place lots of them. As a pioneer during my senior year of high school, those early mornings became part of my routine, really helping me with my hours and placements. Looking back, those memories weren't just about the ministry. They were about spending time with my friends. And even today, those memories make me smile. Then, we would meet at the Kingdom Hall with everyone else for our morning Saturday service meeting. A brother would discuss the daily text. There would be a prayer. Territories would be assigned. We would grab our book bags and head out. And those book bags held everything. Our Bible, several publications, magazines, house-to-house record slips, pens, return visit information, everything we needed for the morning. The organization gave us these house-to-house record slips, but I also carried a little spiral notebook for my return visits because I would write down everything I could remember about each person because I wanted them to feel comfortable for when I came back. I would write down their name. I would write down their family names. I would write down everything that we would talk about, anything that might help me remember them. Did I love knocking on doors? No, especially if someone yelled at us. But I did enjoy meeting people. I enjoyed spending time with my friends. I loved my pioneer partners. Some of my closest friendships came from those long days together. Then, of course, we would have our 15-minute coffee break. Grab a donut, grab something to snack on, catch up, laugh, talk about life, then head right back out. And those breaks were just part of the routine. We also counted everything. We would count every single hour we went out. We would count every single magazine that we placed, every book, every brochure. We would write down the return visits, the Bible studies. And every month, of course, we would turn in our field service time report. If you consistently reported 10 hours or more, people generally viewed you as a spiritual person. Nobody had to say it. We just all understood it. Today, most of what we used to carry in our book bags all fit on our phone. Our territories, publications, return visits, even reporting our ministry. Most people today just check a box if they went out once that month. I would never, ever have imagined that back in the day. Looking back, field service wasn't just about knocking on doors. It was about friendships, shared routines, long conversations in the car, coffee breaks, working together towards something we sincerely believed mattered. Those are the memories that have stayed with me. And, just like the meetings, field service gradually became something very different from what I remembered. As kids, we counted down to our assemblies and conventions all year long. They weren't just another meeting. They were the biggest events of the year. We'd get new clothes. We'd pack up the car. We'd load our Bibles and notebooks and food. And we'd head off to spend the day with thousands of other witnesses. Walking into one of those huge auditoriums was something that I'll never forget. With 10 to 15,000, if not more, witnesses all in one place. It felt like we were part of something much bigger than ourselves. Now, honestly, it's not that I love sitting in those seats for hours, because that wasn't the fun part. The fun part was everything around it. Seeing friends that we hadn't seen in months, sometimes even years. Walking around the concourse during lunch, talking, laughing, catching up. And if you were a teenager, you would probably remember corridor cruising. We'd spend lunch walking around in our new convention clothes, talking with friends, seeing who was there, and just enjoying being together. Even as adults, many of us still spent lunch walking around looking for people we hadn't seen in months, even years. Those conventions weren't just meetings, they were reunions. There was always a sense of excitement. What new book were we going to get? Were we going to get a brochure? We couldn't wait to find out. And of course, then there were the live dramas. Those were always highlights of the convention. We talk about them all the way home, sometimes for weeks afterwards. But over the years, the names began changing. District assemblies became district conventions, then regional conventions. The presiding overseer became the coordinator of the body of elders. The kingdom ministry became the meeting workbook. One by one, the names I'd known for decades just quietly disappeared. Now, some changes surprised me. One year I stood there looking around and noticed credit card machines everywhere. I remember thinking, people are using credit cards to make donations now? That means some people will actually be paying interest on their donations. Why were they encouraging that? It surprised me and bugged me at the same time. Then even the conventions themselves gradually changed too. Huge auditoriums that we were all used to became smaller, even meeting at the assembly halls in many areas. The annual release of printed publications became much less common. Almost every convention talk now includes videos. Even the convention dramas became videos. Again, I never thought I would imagine seeing something like this. I didn't realize how much those experiences had changed while I was living them. Each change by itself seemed small, but when I finally stepped back and looked at them together, it was then I realized this isn't the same religion I grew up in. The meetings changed, field service changed, assemblies and conventions changed, and each change by itself, although small, was something that I just accepted, that I adjusted to, and just moved on like all witnesses do. But then it felt like everything was changing, and I found myself thinking, wait, really? I never thought I'd see brothers told they could have a beard. For decades, many believed having one could keep them from privileges or make them appear less spiritual. And this one was personal. My dad, he always wanted one, but he spent all of his life believing he shouldn't. And now he's in his mid-80s, and he finally can have one. I remember looking at him and just thinking, he waited his whole life. And, well, let's not forget, sisters can now wear pants. Okay, do you know how many freezing, cold, wet, miserable days I went out in a dress, and now I could have worn pants? Are you kidding me? My husband earned a scholarship before we were married. He turned it down because he truly believed going to college would take him away from meetings and field service. He believed he was doing the right thing. Today, the conversations around higher education feels very different, and that makes him very angry. For most of my life, my spirituality was measured by time. Nobody had to say it, we all knew it. If you consistently reported 10 hours or more each month, people viewed you as spiritual. But then, one day, we stopped reporting hours, and now we simply have to check a box whether we talk to somebody. Who would have thought that back in the day? And then another change came that I'd never expected. For years, we have been taught that once the Great Tribulation began, it would be too late for anyone to come back to Jehovah or become one of Jehovah's Witnesses. But then the understanding changed. People can now still respond, even after the Great Tribulation starts. And I remember thinking, well, if that's true, why wouldn't people just wait? And that question still stays with me. The blood issue became personal too. My husband's sister lost her life because she refused to store her own blood. And today, storing your own blood has become a matter of personal conscience. That wasn't just another policy change. That one hurt. Then came COVID. For the first time in my entire life, we weren't meeting at the Kingdom Hall because the Kingdom Hall's closed. Meetings moved to Zoom in our homes, and almost overnight, the way we experienced our religion changed. And that change didn't end when the pandemic did. Today, the governing body comes into our homes through monthly broadcasts, special updates, annual meetings, our televisions, our computers, our tablets, and our phones. Growing up, most of us couldn't have named the members of the governing body. We knew there was a governing body, but we didn't know who they were or what they looked like because they stayed in the background. And today, well, you know, we recognize their faces. We know their names. Another thing I'd never thought I'd live to see. The conventions changed too. Almost every convention talk now includes videos. Even the convention dramas became videos. Who would have thunk that? Today, most of what we used to carry in our book bags fits on one phone. And all the names that have been changed: Presiding Overseer, Theocratic Ministry School, Our Kingdom Ministry, Book Study, District Convention, District Overseer, Public Talk, first 60 minutes, then 45 minutes, and now 30 minutes? Field Service Report, Printed Publications. Then something else occurred to me. For most of my life, we believed we were separate from the world. People often recognized us as one of Jehovah's Witnesses before we ever said a word. It was because of our dress. It was because of our grooming, the choices we made. We didn't go to college. We didn't accept any blood transfusions. And we believed Armageddon could come at any moment. When we went out in field service, we believed we were carrying an urgent message. It shaped every part of our lives as our identity. And today, the organization seems to be encouraging witnesses to look much more mainstream. Beards, pants for women, a different conversation around higher education, less emphasis on reporting time, a message that feels very different than the one I grew up sharing. And sometimes I find myself wondering, what separates us as one of Jehovah's Witnesses from everyone else? Then I finally stepped back, not because I was trying to prove anyone wrong. I simply wanted to understand why something felt so different. And that's when I realized it wasn't one change. It was all of them together. And that's when it finally hit me. The organization I was born into and belonged to for more than 50 years no longer looked like the religion that had shaped my life. If you've spent decades as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, maybe some of these memories brought a smile to your face. Maybe they reminded you of people you loved, places you haven't thought about in years, or moments you thought only you remembered. This isn't about criticizing every change, or organizations change, people change, life changes. To me, the biggest surprise hasn't been that the religion changed. It's realizing how much it has changed before I even noticed. Whether you're still one of Jehovah's Witnesses, whether you've left, or whether you're simply trying to understand someone you love, I hope this gives you a glimpse into what many longtime witnesses have experienced. Sometimes the hardest thing isn't noticing one change, it's realizing just how many changes happened while you were busy living your life. I hope this video resonated with you. I hope it gave you words for what you were thinking about. If it did, please make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons, algorithms and all. Thank you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Until next time, please take care of yourself and keep searching.